Hello and welcome to another edition of Critical Conversations. Okay, doing my final sound check there. Welcome to our live show. Thank you very much for coming on board and watching us. As almost always, I am joined by my beautiful wife, Melissa.
Hello.
And we are so happy that she is here with us this week. What a week, huh? Whoa. Well, apropos of nothing, we have some things to talk about, and I am going to monologue in a second, but we've got some beginning of the show stuff to deal with and all of that. First off, of course, welcome, everybody. I'm so happy you're here. As I just said, and we'll say probably about 5 or 6 times during the course of the show, because it's true.
I love you guys.
Yes. Hey, Scotland. Wow. Canada.
Nice.
Oh, my goodness. Australia. So many people from so many places. It is awesome. I love my audience. And yes, Benson as well. In fact, let's go ahead and welcome the other part of our family early on in the show here. So let's take a look. Yep, there he is. Here's our little guy. This is our little, I guess our little dog child.
I know, right?
our little bundle of joy. And here he is in the living room here, and he's just kind of, you can see he's got his little winter coat on. Mel got him a vest.
Snowing.
Yes, and he does go outside and frolic around.
He loves the snow.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he likes to run in it and eat it and roll around in it.
Yes, he is quite the little furry beast, and oh my goodness, he really does. I really think the word is that he sort of frolics out there in the snow. He really does jump around and get around. And then this is his usual drills. He'll wander around and sit right in front of you, or start getting on you, start jumping on you and whatever. He is so funny. Anyway, he might be wandering around here somewhere.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Leaving things open for him. Hey, London. Wow. Awesome. Wow. A lot of people watching. Okay.
Yeah, people everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is awesome. And I'm very happy everybody's on board here, as I just said. I do have, she has a quote.
I do.
And I want her to go over this first as well, because it's interesting and, again, apropos of nothing.
Well, I had a lot of you know I'm type 1 diabetic and had bad diabetes day today. And I've been thinking about diabetes a lot lately. I think I told you guys a while back that I'm working on this fiction podcast, and one of the things about it is main character's type 1. So writing that thing means I'm thinking about not only my own stuff, but the podcast. There's so many diabetes things in my mind. So I decided to write my own quote today. So I'll explain it afterwards. Almost every day I ask myself if it meant losing the lessons and the empathy I have learned from 32 years of this illness, would I take it all away to have never had this in the first place? And the answer is always maybe.
Right. Anything else you want to say about that?
Well, what I want to say is the reason I feel that way is because, I know some of you out there have chronic illnesses and trauma and stuff too. And I think for both of those, whether it's a chronic situation or a trauma situation, it's like, going through both, you're like, well, yeah, there's good things that came out of it. There's things about me that changed. Maybe if I didn't have diabetes, I would be a much more terrible person and less empathetic and, not as understanding about other disabled people and that kind of thing. And so that's kind of where you come from. But then on the other hand, you're going, well, but what if I was still like understanding and empathetic and I didn't have to deal with this?
Yeah. Well, I've certainly experienced my ups and downs over the years that I can relate to with this. We were talking before the show about how this is similar for her to my recovery from Scientology. And you wonder, well, what would I have been like without that? Would I have been the person I am now? Is all the lessons that I've learned from that worth all the pain and suffering, I think? Yeah. That you have to go through is that worth it? And of course, you don't really know.
You can't really answer it. Yeah.
How can you know what you would be like if some significant thing that happened to you was so important and significant? You can't imagine what direction would you have gone otherwise, you know? That's something I've thought about a lot, an awful lot. But at the end of the day, you know, it's not something that I've chosen to, my Scientology experience, for example, is simply something that is not, there's no use in me feeling regret or, you know, holding on to if I've considered that or had that in the past or had feelings of that about just what, you know, what choices did I have? That kind of thing. That's another, for me, that's a key question in situations like that.
Yeah.
Diabetes, me growing up in Scientology, neither one of these things are choices either one of us made.
No.
They just happen. And so you got to roll with it. And to that degree, I think regret is not something I want to, you know. Oh, I forgot to update the date on here. I'll have to update the title on there.
All right.
Yeah, I have the date for last week. What's happening?
In the name of not wanting misinformation to spread, Joe, I see your comment about chromium and zinc, but the thing is I'm wondering if you're thinking about type 2 diabetes, not type 1, because there's nothing to be done about type 1. I mean, you know, take your insulin and eat healthy and all the stuff you're supposed to do that way, but like, it's not going away.
Right. No, it's not. Indeed. Okay. So, what should we talk about this week? I made a statement at the beginning of the week that I am sticking to in regards to my current status in talking about or discussing the Masterson case, fallout from it, you know, consequences of it, whatever. I'm not interested in probing, delving, or diving into any more of anything in regards to that situation. But I thought, what would be the most Chris Shelton thing to do tonight? And what's that?
No, keep going.
Okay, and here we are. And I've been thinking about this for days. You know, as far as like, well, what do I say or how do I go about this? And all I can, you know, there's a few things I want to say. I've been doing this for 10 years. For a decade, I have been out of Scientology, and for about 8.5 years, involved with, you know, in a very kind of direct way, the community of ex-Scientologists, both former members who were part of it and left or escaped, and folks like a lot of you who have become interested in it for whatever reason, lots of different reasons. Some, you know, more personal than others, some more entertaining than others, some more whatever, you know, curious than others. There's lots of reasons to approach this topic or subject matter of Scientology, and maybe through Scientology, you know, looking at the bigger picture of it. Cults and mind control and coercive control and propaganda and all the scary stuff that is pretty scary and is manipulative and does drive us to do and say things that can be quite, well, illogical, irrational, emotional, off the rails, and even damaging and destructive to people. And there's a lot I've seen over these years, as have many other people. This is no, you know, at no point during this or usually almost any of my shows am I trying to soapbox from a position of ultimate authority or unquestioning, you know, authority. You know, it's like, this is just my point of view. This is just how I see things, how I have lived things. And I've been through, you know, a lot of crap over the years. I mean, both in Scientology and then out. And all ex-cult members have been through very similar stuff. When you get involved in the community of ex-members, it can be a bit of a wild ride. And and I'll tell you, it would be an anthropologist or sociologist, you know, just dream. I am amazed more academics are not interested in this topic, because the post-cult experience is just as interesting as the cult experience. And There are Facebook groups, there are message boards, there are places we go to connect with one another. And when I first got out of Scientology, and I'm not going to do a whole history lesson here, but I just want to kind of talk about this part of it, because these are things that need to be said. There's a community, and a community is made up of a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds who have maybe one or two things or experiences in common. Bind on that. When it's with trauma, there are stronger, more intense bonds made. You see this with veterans, combat veterans, most intensely, but you also see this reflected in teams of people who are forced by circumstance or job to work together or be together through traumatizing or difficult situations. Emergency room techs, I'm sure, or teams have some of this, or can maybe experience some of this. I'm really not sure. I'm just sort of throwing out another idea of where we might find this kind of intense, common shared experience that bonds people. And sometimes in the course of those bonds, in the course of going through various emergencies and situations that come up, the differences that arise between those people can be intense. And I've seen this so many times over the years. I am not referring to just, recent current events. I am referring to 10 years of observing ex-communities, both in this ex-Scientology world, ex-Mormon, ex-JW. I've sort of been connected with all of those. And every one of them was a wake-up call to me in the same way that you get out of Scientology and I keep saying you, I really mean me. I get out of Scientology, I study, I learn, I grow, I'm recovering, I'm working on it. And you come to a place where you realize L. Ron Hubbard isn't really so special, isn't so unique, is not some evil genius. He was doing the same crap Jim Jones was doing. David Koresh, we've talked about this. This is an important thing to know, is that these cult leaders are not special secret supervillains. They're just predators. They are sharks in human skin, and they run a playbook, and that playbook has very exact things that they have to do and how they go about doing it and the words they use to do it. They change it up from one place to another. But it's the same phenomena. It's the same control mechanisms. There's only so many ways we respond to stuff. And yes, all of this is going somewhere here, okay? So when I first ran into this kind of conflict between people in the ex community, I was taken aback, shocked, appalled, concerned, fearful, afraid. I mean, all kinds of trauma responses appeared in my head and in my emotional life as a result of this. Was I at fault? Were other people at fault? What was wrong? And you come to find out that this time it's your fault, next time it'll be this guy's fault, next time it'll be this guy. I mean, it's a drama. It's a soap opera of personalities and people and trauma, and a lot of personalities feeding into a pool, and a social hierarchy develops. It's, in other words, a structure. This person's got people who believe them and this person doesn't. And this person's, was in for a while and now they're out, and then they come back around and they're in again. And you spend enough time in this, and what comes around goes around. So that happens, and it gets to the point after enough time and seeing this happen enough times, this happens, I started realizing, a few years ago, like, this is the X communities are the same thing. What happens in the ex-Scientology world is the same shit that goes on in the ex-JW world, ex-Mormon world. You have thought leaders, you have celebrity type people, you have people who are working on recovery, you have people who are working on exposure, you have people who are just coming by and watching because they're interested or curious or somehow want to help. There's that too. Lots of helpers. It's not all just looky-loos and flybuyers. There are people who have been watching and stuck with my channel from the day I hit record. They're still coming around, which is incredible to me and awesome. So that happens. Okay, these communities operate the same. They're trauma-based communities, if anybody kind of didn't realize that yet. That's kind of an important thing to know. You know, in the atheist world, you have people bonding on this common idea that there's no deity or no God or gods. In the X community, the bond is we all went through a traumatic experience, and how you deal with that trauma, how you're expected to deal with it, how you want to deal with it, whether you deal with it, whether you even want to, whether you even think it's there to deal with. What you think about your experience, what you think other people should think about that experience, the judgment that enters in when they don't agree with you, the judgment from other people when you don't agree with them. You know, is this really so different from any group? No, but it's heightened. The tensions are ratcheted up a little bit. Just like I say in the cults, everything's dialed up to 11. Well, in a trauma group, in a group that's that's centered around trauma, things are going to get dialed up sometimes, and it's going to get ugly.
Oh, yeah. And then there's the Trauma Olympics that starts in there, too. My experience was worse than your experience. And
yeah, that happens as well. All part of that social hierarchy, right? Who's in, who's out, who's on top, who's the source of information, who's the source of good opinion here, who does everybody like? Oh, thank you, Guru Roar.
Oh, thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. He said here, it's good to have community, but it's also good to belong to other communities. And Chris and Mel, we are really happy to belong to yours.
Oh.
Thank you. I am very, very happy that I have been able to go from those social media communities to create one here. And that just really makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And Catherine S., I see your super chat as well. She says here, it's a shared experience, but also each is unique and each person has their own path. I think people forget that. And the comparison, like it's a competition. Exactly.
Yes.
You guys get what I'm talking about. And I thought you would. You know, I didn't think that, you didn't. I thought most of the folks who were going to come here tonight and who were going to listen to what I had to say were going to be tracking with this and we're going to understand it, right? That this is not for me. What I'm doing with my channel and in my life and with my messaging to you guys, and when I go on camera and I sit here and talk to you, I am not doing this so that I can piss you guys off, rile you up, make you upset, add to conflict. I am the opposite of all of that. And every effort I make is in that direction. And if I go off the rails or kid around sometimes in a slightly maybe mean way or something, or I ridicule something or whatever, it's not meant from an evil place of trying to hurt or harm. And people, but yet obviously I and anybody else is capable of being misunderstood, and people have their own things that they bring to stuff. And so they're going to see you how they're going to see you, no matter what you say or how you say it or what you do. And you come to realize that you grow a thicker skin as a YouTuber. And over the years I have, and I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I got my bad moments as much as anybody else. But I'm in here pitching. And the thing that, the only thing that I want to, oh, thank you, Dylan.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much for that super chat. You guys are awesome. So I wanted to say all of this stuff about communities and stuff like that because there's another thing on top of this. It's just an idea I have. Take it or leave it. I didn't go look up some sociology textbook or something and find this. It's an idea that I have because I've seen it happen over and over and over again over the years. And it's this. We are not only a trauma-based community, but we are also a community of people who are progressive in that we want to see change. We want to see progress. We want motion forward. Otherwise, this stultifies. This doesn't go anywhere, and we're just in a bitching and moaning session all the time about how bad cults are, about how bad Scientology is, and all these evil people. We want things done. We want something to change with this condition. And we get very frustrated when things aren't happening. And they're like, and Scientology is fucking niche, man. It is niche as niche gets. It's a tiny little group with a way oversized reach and a way oversized influence because of all the things we talk about on this channel. It's the levels of mind control, the layers of coercive control that exist in that group are almost astronomical compared to, other groups, other religions. The harm it causes, the work in recovery. I mean, there's just so much to why Scientology is so bad and has such an oversized influence. But we all want to, we're all basically good, if you believe L. Ron Hubbard. And we all want change. We all want to see something happen here. Well, there's times when things are happening and there's times when things are not happening. And sometimes things are happening, but it's not what we wanted. And sometimes things happen and then we have to wait. And there's these periods in between, and they can go for days, weeks, months even sometimes, where just not a lot's happening. There's no real heavy, beefy news story. There's no recent escapees. There's no tasty morsels or bits for everybody to chew on and wonder about and talk about and go, oh, yay, and cheer on like a court case or a suit or, somebody escaping and now we have a new story. Sometimes just not a lot's happening. And it's a weird but interesting thing that I've observed. Not making some rule here. It's just something I've observed, that it's like the community becomes like a pressure cooker because all this demand and need for change and want and drive for something to happen creates this kind of pressure, this powder keg kind of situation. And it's perfectly normal, organic. I'm not even talking about like some specific person or thing or event. It's just the pressure. And people get impatient and they start looking for targets and they start making them. And I've seen this so many times. And if there's no immediate outside target, then the target becomes somebody or some series of people, or there's a schism of some kind, this group versus this group, and now we're going to have a fight because we ain't got nothing else to do. I mean, it sounds a little callous and a little like harsh or whatever, but I'm trying to be light about this and just point out it happens. And it's going to happen regardless of the personalities involved. In groups, here's another observation about groups that needs to be said, is you have different roles. You have your bleeding edge, tip of the spear, getting out there, being loud, being noisy, making the fuss, stirring things up. The people who do that, right? That's their bent. And people with certain personalities are drawn to that. Other people, and I'm not going to speak to or name names or anything like that. I'm talking in generalities for a reason here. But you see people like that. Then you see other people who are more participatory. You see people who are more supportive. They're willing to throw money at it, but they're not really investing time, but they're willing to support it. And you find people, and here's where I will say where I see myself in this, is you see people who are more involved in let's expose, let's educate, let's recover, let's inform. It's more of an internal, kind of external, let's help, let's see what we can do about this. But it's not about, being loud and noisy and out there and, and I'm gonna antagonize these folks. There are people who do that. I've commented on them for years, that there are channels out there and there are people out there who are absolutely confrontational, get in people's faces, get out there and do it. And I've always said it's not my thing, and I don't think it works the way they want it to, but I've never said don't do it. At least if I have, I'm taking those words back because that would have been wrong of me to say that. We need everybody at the helm, and I don't think I did say that, but I think I've said, hey, everybody's got their job here. Everybody needs to do their part. And we all sort of, kind of coagulate and sort to these things. Will there be conflict between these things? Of course there will. Will the tension, trauma, and social demands of the group cause these things to happen for no reason whatsoever? You bet they will. You can just, things get, a little electric, and it just takes a little match, and then, things go. Okay. So I see we've got some calls in the queue, and I think I've monologued with the things I wanted to say. I just wanted to remind everybody out there that that this is not about offending or hurting or upsetting people or anything. This is about trying to get messaging out there and trying to stop destructive cults from being destructive cults. Now, there's one last thing I want to leave you guys with, and then we'll get into the calls. I have been preaching critical thinking, emotional intelligence, but critical thinking and logical fallacies, we read them every week. We go over this stuff, and it's really upsetting when it's not applied. And I'm just gonna say it's been upsetting for years. It's not like this new thing. You see stories come along, you see facts being bandied about by people, and you're like, man, I really wish you'd ask a few more questions. I really wish you'd be a little bit more curious about what you think you know. Because there are times where facts are few, conjecture is high. There's lots of people quite sure that they understand exactly what's going on, and it's not always the case. And that's why time will always sort of tell, which is why, by the way, just as a little reminder and throw out there on to reinforce my point, that's one of the reasons why I pulled back on my podcast years ago and stopped doing reactionary work. This is no criticism. Do not interpret this as criticism of anybody else's channel or work, because that's not what I'm trying to say right now. What I'm trying to say is you folks out there deserve to take your time to come up with your conclusions by applying the things I've been trying to talk about for years, right? About logical fallacies and critical thinking and being more curious than sure. Because, when you're in a fluid situation where things are developing, you don't necessarily have all the facts. And so I think I made a joke this week that the fastest thing in the universe, the only thing in the universe faster than the speed of light is the speed with which people will jump to conclusions. Mm-hmm. And that's what I wanted to say on that. So let's go ahead and take some calls. I believe this is Nick. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for waiting. I'm doing pretty good now. How are you?
Yeah. I'm good. I'm very good. I really enjoyed that monologue because I'm resonating with it pretty much 100%, and I think most of your listeners are as well. Some of the stuff that I've noticed is it's not just with the anti-Scientology group. I'm noticing all these different groups on YouTube, social media. People are jostling for position because I think part of it is an ego thing. Because I think a lot of people, they want to be the tip of the spear or the face of the movement. And I don't think they're doing it maliciously. I just think it's like they don't even realize they're doing it. They're just so hungry for a victory that you just kind of forget who their friends and enemies are. Right? You start treating everybody like an enemy instead of, working together.
Yes, I absolutely agree with what you just said. I think it's a great restatement of exactly what I was trying to talk about. So thank you for putting it a different way for people, because that's exactly right. What I've seen. How long have you been following this stuff? Let me ask you a question.
I think I was following your stuff a couple of years ago, and then when the pandemic started, that's when I started watching all the other people who I'm not going to name because I don't want them to feel targeted. But I was subscribed to about 5 or 6 other people's anti-Scientology channels. But what's really weird was this: like within the past 4 or 5 months, I've noticed that with the vast majority of them, they've gotten more negative. They've gotten the thing with it is it's like a sense of justice. There's a thin line between a sense of justice and a desire for revenge. And
well, I'll definitely.
You said earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
You said earlier with. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm totally interrupting you. Please finish your thought. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing of it is, though, is I think a lot of these people, it's like, the different things that they were doing as far as like Scientology. Yeah, it would be wonderful if Scientology would just come crumbling down yesterday and it would be no more. That would be wonderful. But the thing of it is, though, is like a lot of these people, I think, have such a subconscious desire for revenge. They just want something to happen. And if they have what feels like losses, they're going to react. They're going to act out. They're going to get negative. They're going to get snipey with each other. I feel like you've been above the fray because you're looking at all these. You're looking at all the cults because you've gotten yourself educated to see similarities and differences between multiple different cults. So you've kind of got like an eagle's eye view. Meanwhile, all the rest of them, they're still kind of scratching on the ground like a flock of chickens. No offense to them, but it's just like you're seeing things from a higher perspective, and they can't really comprehend that because again, they're so hungry for justice, but it's not being satisfied, so they're getting angry about that and they're taking it out on people, and that's my big concern because David Miscavige sees you guys fighting with each other. He's just got to be loving it. He's got to be loving it because he's like, oh, look, my enemies are divided.
Yes.
And that's the problem.
Yes.
You cannot afford to be divided.
Correct. I will say that I believe Osa's favorite strategy is divide and conquer.
Oh, yeah.
And all the factors that I laid out for y'all and others play a part in how they can do that. It's easier in a community like this to do that than I would say it would be in other less tightly knit but less intense communities, So, yeah, I agreed with you all the way on that.
Mm-hmm. And, one of the things, though, is also, it's like, at the end of the day, and I would say this to all of the channels, all of them who were anti-Scientology, at the end of the day, when you're old and you're gray, and even if Scientology still exists, will you be able to look at your life and say, I die with my integrity. I die knowing that I was a good man or a good woman and did the right thing. Because at the end of the day, that is all you will ever have.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, thank you very much for all those thoughts. Those were spot on, I thought. Yeah.
Well, you guys are pretty awesome. And give Benson a hug for me and a dog treat. And you guys have a wonderful weekend.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for calling in, man. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Cool. Let me just check in here on the comments and see how we're doing here. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. We have another call. Let's go ahead and pick this up. Oh, almost had it. Okay, I think this is our French caller. Hello?
Hello, wonderful. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to our show from France.
Yes, tonight I said my name. I'm always I'm sorry, I never understood this automatic machine, what I should say. But you both deserve to know my name. My name is Frédéric. And I just wanted to say two things. First of all, thank you for taking my call. And second, it's a bit more general. I differentiate in between dignity and professionalism and respect. And so if you, for example, have a job, doesn't matter what job, you're tuber or you work somewhere in a place, you should be always treated with dignity and professionalism. Means your boss shouldn't tell you like David Miscavige, what you always said, what he's saying. And another thing is to earn respect, right? And Chris and Melissa, a big compliment to you both. I am one of those people from France that watch your channel by coincidence, You are not one of the, I'm sorry to say now, you're not one of the gamers and big YouTube channels, but what stands out for you is you really, you catch me. My husband is actually like, you are always watching them. Why? And he watches you too because he's interested in what you're saying. You're quite intelligent what you say. You bring it on a point with this emotional abuse in general, and the information you give about Scientology is kind of mind-blowing. And I'm from Europe. Who's Europe? But yes, that's a coincidence. I'm sorry, but I love your channel. And I just wanted to say that you earned my respect by the way you treat people that call, that how you involve with those topics, how you speak about that. And I hate confrontations. I'm unfortunately over 40. Well, don't tell that anybody. I'm just 25. I'm telling my husband.
Of course.
Melissa looks like, I'm sorry to say, Melissa looks like 25 too.
See?
Tell me what cream you use.
I tell her these things and she never believes me. Literally, I tell her and she just like, oh, whatever, you have to say that. So thank you for saying that.
Yes, thank you.
But you're welcome. But what I really want to say is that I really appreciate someone who is standing over the things and taking the things mature and please before putting out something. And, you respect the people, you respect your viewers, you respect opinions, and you go into that. And that's why I follow you, not for any other reasons. It's because you are amazing people. And I'm sorry that was it. And Nick, the caller before, already said so much. And
Awesome.
Thank you so much for what you're doing and continue.
Very much.
Night.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Got some other calls in the queue.
Bonsoir, au revoir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What an awesome call. I love it. Okay, we have an anonymous call. Let's see what we got here. One moment. And hello, you were on.
Hello.
Hey, okay, it's David from the UK.
Yep. Yes,
Hey. Oh, first I have to, let me give a quick shout out, David, to Gurroar on your super chat. Thank you very much. Very appreciated. Just wanted to get that acknowledgement now, David. Sorry, I should have done that before I picked up your call. What you got for us tonight?
Well, I've got a couple of things, and I will just say I do think that at the very end, I think I will mention the elephant in the room. When we were having a debate about the legacy of New Labour back in 2013, we had, let's see, was it 12 speeches? How many speeches did it take for somebody to mention Iraq?
Huh. Iraq?
Have a guess.
Don't
what
know.
Number speech?
This is in 2013?
2013, way back then.
Yeah, 10 years ago. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm getting the reference.
It took until speech number 10 because nobody wanted to talk about it because everybody thought they should talk about it, but nobody wanted to be the one to do it.
Got it.
Huh.
Got it. I get the point now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm tracking.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get to that, I do want to make a comment on the idea of community, particularly as it might relate to Scientology more than other cults.
Sure, what you got?
The first is that maybe it's a bad idea for people in destructive situations to bond over the fact that they were in really destructive situations. Whenever you get out of that kind of environment and you have to try to find yourself all over again, and you haven't really had the time to do that yet. So maybe it's better for people at the time to find themselves first before they connect with people that are still finding themselves in the same situation. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a great point you're making. And I tend to avoid, too broad of rules because, of course, I didn't do that before I got started. I just started blabbering away right away when I got out. And I don't regret that. It was part of the catharsis, but I would never say everybody should do what I just did either, right? So I think you have a good point there. And I think that there is unfortunately, Scientology's community is particularly challenged in terms of doing what you're suggesting, or in other words, you're talking about catharsis and recovery and education and doing that stuff, right?
Yes.
And unfortunately, there's even more hampering of that in Scientology's world because of all the anti-psych stuff. So they're rabidly anti-psych. I was kind of unique in that was one of the first things I tackled and challenged myself on was, is this really true that psychiatry is evil and must be destroyed? And I learned very quickly that it had definitely had its faults, but it wasn't worthy of being destroyed. But I'll tell you, to this day, there are still ex-Scientologists who absolutely believe that is true. So I think that it's a difficult task, but I agree with you in general. I would agree with you that people should do some work before they worry too much about getting out there. But it's kind of unique for each person.
And I would make a brief comment about Scientology on that. Is that you talked about hierarchies and that kind of thing reproducing itself. I have to wonder if the sheer amount of certificates and qualifications that come out of Scientology might have something to do with that, particularly whenever, let's think about the real world. Zero people outside of Scientology care what class of auditor you were, how many rundowns you did, what level of the bridge you were. But people have invested so much time and so much money, they have to think it's worth something.
Absolutely. Of course they do. And it's totally understandable that they would. It's the thing that it's literally their social credits. And when you come out of that world, suddenly all that doesn't mean anything. And if that's not, I'll tell you, I don't know anybody that doesn't throw for a loop at first. You know, you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what? You know, like people aren't listening to me. People don't care about me. That my opinions don't matter. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you got to go through. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah.
Because you used to be this big person, and it's not just that you got used to that, it's that you spent so much time. You spent so much time doing it. You spent so much money doing it. You might have signed a billion-year contract, and then you get out in the real world and it isn't worth anything.
Exactly, and the thing that really puts it over the top, if I might add to this from my own experience, is the thing that really just drives the knife in and twists it is how you were so sure when you were in. You were so sure that all of this was so important and so significant and so necessary, and there was so much value in what you were doing. I mean, as a Sea Org member, when I walked into a Church of Scientology with a Sea Org uniform on, I mean, people snapped too. People stood up. It was a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And when you come from that world back into the real world where nobody gives a shit who you are, and you're just another Joe, culture shock doesn't even begin to describe the adjustments you have to make with that. But I know other people in other situations also have parallels with this, even ex-military to a degree. So I get it, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make it too elite. It's just, it's an interesting problem, you know.
Oh yeah. It's almost like when I go back. If I go back to the Oxford Union, everybody still knows me to this day. But outside of that world, you're just the same as everybody else. Exactly.
And that's okay. When we recognize that, then we're not traumatized by it. But when you're pumped up beyond all belief,
superimpose,
you know, then it's
can superimpose who you were somewhere else onto the world at large, because the world at large doesn't care about small communities, whether they be cults, whether they be societies, whether they be your university. you're no longer the big fish in the small pond anymore. You're a small fish in a very, very, very big pond.
Exactly. All right, David, thank you very much for this call. I've got to move on to some other guys in the queue. Yeah?
Fair, yeah. I will just say very, very briefly to mention the elephant in the room that he did say that he hopes he can work things out with you, but that is the ball's in your court and you have to do what's right for you.
Exactly. And I rest assured I will do that. Thank you very much for that comment. Okay. Talk to you, David. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bye-bye.
All right. Let's just go straight to the next one. Yeah.
All right.
Or should we check in, see if there's anythings? Ooh, what's this? I love all these comments where I have to go show it. Oh yeah, for sure. You guys are so awesome in the comment section. Okay. I think we had some viewers. I'm watching how many are concurrently watching, and it cracks me up because I think we reached a point where people realized I wasn't going to be incendiary and awful, and they tuned out.
I know, right?
Not the majority of you or all of you. I'm just laughing to myself right now. Let's pick up this next call here. This is Travis. Hi.
Howdy.
Hey,
it's
welcome
good to see
the show.
Melissa too.
Thank you. It's good to hear from you.
Yes.
Right. So, Chris earlier in the show, and by the way, that was a good quote there, Melissa.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to give you some feedback. So, Chris, earlier in the show, you lamented that, this critical thinking thing that you push, it's not really practiced all that much in the world around you, or around any of us, actually.
It's a constant struggle. Yes.
Yeah. So I've noticed that too since I'm old now, but since I was a young person, and it used to frustrate me to no end.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I have learned along the way, which has given me patience, is critical thinking may be a simple thing in and of itself. Kind of like learning math. All right, you learn math and you can do it.
Yep.
What I've learned, though, in the general world is that critical thinking is like a big stew. It takes time. It takes talent, kind of sort of talent. It takes practice.
Yes.
And most of all, it takes somebody willing to care.
Yes.
And
that is true.
Most people that I've met, they don't give a pile of festering dog feces about thinking critically or learning or education. You do.
Yes.
And that's why it's important to you.
Yes.
Now, when I mention talent, it can be a learned skill. I don't want anybody out there in viewerland thinking that I'm putting anybody down who don't have a natural inclination for that. It's something that can be learned. I'm a living example of that. Trust me, I
so am I, to be honest. I would not claim any talent in this regards. I am one of the slowest learners I know. So, yes.
I happen to agree with that assessment, but on my end, and for you too, sir. So, and I mean that in the most loving way possible.
Well, thank you.
Anyway, so I wanted to throw that out there because it's unfortunately one of the most multifaceted things. Oh, and then there's the emotional component. Well, I think critically about the yummy pizza that I eat 2 slices a day. Like, that's not good for my diet. No, I'm just not going to think about that.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, it's great. Well, I'll bring it even closer to my own life. I used to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Can I tell you, it was the greatest thing in the world. I loved the cigarette.
Yeah.
I
used to smoke. I hear you.
Me too, yeah.
I get it.
Look, I was in the service. They'd make me run. I'd smoke after I run. I'd smoke before I run. I'd talk to other GIs. It didn't matter. Smoke. Chimney smoke. You think I thought critically about what I was doing? You know how much money I spent? A ton. I could have been spending money on something better. And I don't mean beer, because I spent a lot of money on that too back then.
Right.
No, and so there are these blind spots and these preferences, and it's just this big batch of human mess when it comes to critical thinking.
Yeah, it really is.
You know, I've learned in my old age to accept that. I thought I'd throw this in there. Okay. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't.
No, I definitely agree with you. You're not saying stupid things. You're absolutely right. It's just that's the battle. That's what I'm fighting. You know, that's what I'm working on, and myself and others. We all do what we can.
Can I tell you, you're one of the few people that have told me I don't say stupid things. That's I'll take that as my win for the week. With that being said, I'll let you. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. Thanks, Travis. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Let us. Yes, we do have time for one more call. I see 2 in the queue, and I think we're only going to be able to take 1, and I'm sorry about that. Here it is. We're going to take Mark's because he's next in line. Mark, hi.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, I stumbled across this video on YouTube. This Scientologist got caught up in this catch a predators thing, and these cops are questioning him, and he has the most bizarre look on his face, like he has absolutely no clue how much trouble that he's in. It's like it's and then we ask him have you ever seen him any treatment, mental treatment? The guy goes, hell no. And this, you could tell this guy was hardcore.
Well, interesting. I did not see that story, so I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with the one you're talking about. I wish I had. I'll have to look for that.
I just stumbled across it. These cops, catch a predator, and this guy thought he was going to have a rendezvous with a 13-year-old girl, and the cops asked him, what the hell is a 44-year-old man doing trying to hook up a 13-year-old?
Yeah, that's a little bit much. Jesus.
Yeah, and this guy did not have an answer at all. It's just his just had the most bizarre look on his face.
Wow. And this was a Scientologist, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. I definitely got to look that up. I missed that story.
This guy just has no goddamn clue whatsoever how much, I mean, he got caught red-handed.
Huh.
I mean, he's texting, he's on some website computer, and it's all, there's absolutely no doubt about this guy's guilt. He's on a computer and set up this rendezvous, and
it looks like somebody's commenting that this happened in December is when this report was from. So I guess you just saw it. I'll have to go back and look at it myself because it's not even coming to mind. But all right, I'm going to let you go because we got to wrap up the show. But thank you for calling in about that. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I just stumbled across it.
All right, man. All right, talk to you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So, folks, all right. So I see folks are heading out. So go ahead and do that. Maybe there are other streams happening. I don't know. But, it was To Catch a Predator. There we go.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, too. I don't know if it was on. I don't think that show's on anymore, but that's what it reminds me of is To Catch a Predator. To Catch a Scientologist.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, that was interesting. So that was from that show back in December. So, okay, guys. First off, we're going to wrap up the show. So we're going to do our cards.
All right.
I just wanted to wrap up again. I think we made it clear during the show here, but just to say it out loud again, we are a contentious group of people and we don't always get along. And guess what? We're human, and that's how it works. And we're all just trying to do our part in whatever niche or role we see ourselves in to bring you guys data and information and education and try to get your help, try to raise awareness. And that's all of us, I think, are trying to do at the end of the day. And we have a lot of different ways we approach it, a lot of different ways we think we should be doing it or other people should be doing it. But we're all trying to move the ball down the road. And on that point, I can fully agree with all of my other community members, even if we don't see eye to eye on almost anything else. So we're going to draw a critical thinking card.
Declinism. You remember the past as better than it was and expect the future to be worse than evidence suggests it will be. Despite living in the most peaceful and prosperous time in history, many people believe things are getting worse. Use metrics such as life expectancy, levels of crime and violence, and prosperity statistics.
Yes. In other words, use some facts.
Yeah.
All right. I am happy with this show. I hope it came off all right. I hope you guys are too. Thanks very much for coming around. I want to very much thank everybody who super chat during the show.
Yeah.
Your support is very, very much appreciated. And I want to give a shout out to all my Patreon supporters out there. You are known. You are appreciated. I, in fact, can't thank you enough because you are literally the reason that this show remains going and that the lights are on and all of this. So thank you, all of you, for that. And I will continue producing my work as I always have. And I will see you guys, in fact, tomorrow with a non-Scientology podcast. We've got an emotional one. We got one on emotions tomorrow. I interviewed a psych. A psych. Yes,
Uh-oh.
The evil psychs are back on the channel. And so you will see an evil psych here tomorrow on my Sensibly Speaking podcast talking about emotions with me. And I hope you guys will tune into that. And then we will do our usual pre-recorded, not live. I will do a pre-recorded Q&A this Sunday. All right. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.